The encrypted communication channel crackled with static as Commander Lyra Howe adjusted her headset. Listening post Vega 9 had been silent for days, which was precisely why the sudden burst of activity had triggered every alarm in the station. She brushed a strand of dark hair from her face and leaned closer to the holographic display. "Analysis complete, Commander," announced the post's AI, its voice modulated to project calm efficiency. "Structured transmissions detected in Sector Q-17, Aegis system. Pattern matches known human military drill codes with 87% certainty." Lyra's eyes narrowed. The Aegis system lay squarely within the disputed zone, established after the last conflict with the Human Coalition of Free Worlds. According to the treaty, neither side was permitted to establish military installations there. The fragile truce between the Galactic Confederation and the humans had held for 3 standard years. But tensions remained high. "Source?" she demanded. "Aegis 3, the forested moon orbiting the gas giant. Transmissions are sporadic but disciplined, suggesting a small-scale operation, likely a clandestine facility." Lyra tapped her comm badge, her decision already made. "Alert Recon Squadron Omega-4. Full briefing in 20 minutes." As she strode through the gleaming corridors of Vega 9, Lyra mentally reviewed what little intelligence they had on human special forces. The Coalition's commandos had proven disturbingly effective during the border skirmishes, employing tactics that often seemed primitive, but consistently yielded results against superior GC technology. The thought of humans establishing a covert training facility in disputed space sent a chill down her spine. "Confederation High Command acknowledges your report," stated Admiral Zen's holographic projection, his scaled face betraying no emotion. "You are authorized to conduct a silent reconnaissance operation, determine the nature and extent of human presence on Aegis 3, but avoid detection at all costs. The diplomatic situation is delicate." "Understood, Admiral," Lyra replied, her back rigid. "And if we confirm military activity?" "Document everything. We need irrefutable evidence before we can formally accuse the Coalition of treaty violations. But make no mistake, Commander, if the humans are training commandos in the disputed zone, this could reignite the conflict." The briefing room fell silent as the Admiral's hologram faded. Lieutenant Rin, her second in command, looked up from his datapad. The young Cygni's feathered crest rippled with concern. "Intelligence suggests minimal orbital surveillance around Aegis 3, he reported. "We can approach under full cloak and insert a ground team without detection." Tech Operative Sesh, her multifaceted eyes, reflecting the tactical display, nodded in agreement. "The forest canopy will provide additional cover once we're planetside. However, if this is indeed a commando facility, we should expect sophisticated counter-surveillance measures." "Agreed," Lyra said. "We'll deploy with full-spectrum dampeners. Kiro, you'll monitor our comm signatures. Nothing gets out unless I authorize it." The stocky Brel engineer acknowledged with a grunt, already calculating power requirements for sustained cloaking. 12 hours later, the sleek reconnaissance vessel, HFY, slipped into orbit around Aegis 3, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to all but the most specialized detection equipment. From orbit, the moon appeared peaceful. Vast oceans of emerald forest broken only by jagged mountain ranges and the occasional crystalline lake. "Thermal scanning complete," reported Kiro. "I'm detecting a concentration of heat signatures in the northern hemisphere, approximately 3 kilometers inland from the Serene Bay." Lyra studied the readout. "That's our target. Prepare for deployment. Remember, we observe only. No engagement unless absolutely necessary." The drop pods descended silently through the atmosphere, their heat signatures masked by cutting-edge Confederation technology. Lyra felt the familiar lurch in her stomach as the pod decelerated. Then, the gentle bump of touchdown. The forest around her was alive with alien sounds, creatures calling to one another amid the rustling canopy. She activated her tactical visor, and the world transformed into a spectrum of heat signatures and movement patterns. Team status report. She subvocalized through the secure comlink. Rin in position, northwest perimeter. Sesh deployed, eastern approach. Kiro on station, southern vector. Converge on the target location, move slow, stay low. The forest grew denser as they approached the coordinates. Lyra advanced with practiced precision, her boots making no sound on the spongy forest floor. Something about the vegetation pattern ahead struck her as unnatural. Too uniform, with cleared spaces that followed no ecological logic. "Commander," Sesh's voice whispered in her ear. "I'm detecting regular movement patterns approximately 200 meters ahead. Multiple heat signatures moving in formation." Lyra froze, engaging her optical enhancers to maximum zoom. Through the foliage, she could make out figures moving with military precision through what appeared to be an obstacle course. The figures were smaller than she expected, compact, agile, dressed in camouflage that blended remarkably well with the forest. "I have visual on what appears to be a training field," reported Rin from his position. "Subjects are running drills with remarkable coordination. But, Commander, they appear unusually small for human soldiers." Lyra frowned. "Experimental bioengineering? Unknown, but they're demonstrating advanced tactical awareness." "Wait!" Rin's transmission cut off abruptly. "Lieutenant, report!" Lyra hissed, already moving toward his last known position. Kiro's voice crackled through. "Commander, I'm detecting a perimeter of surveillance nodes. Primitive technology, but effective, motion and heat sensitive." "Sesh, locate Rin!" "His tracker is still active. He's approximately 50 meters northeast of his last position, moving at 3 meters per second. That's too fast for him to be walking." "He's being transported," Lyra concluded grimly. "Maintain stealth protocols. I'm proceeding to his location." As she crept through the underbrush, Lyra caught glimpses of the facility through the trees. What she saw defied her expectations. The clearing contained simple structures, temporary shelters arranged in neat rows, a central gathering area with log seating around a fire pit, and multiple training zones where the small figures continued their exercises. Some were navigating rope courses suspended between trees, while others practiced what appeared to be ambush tactics. She spotted Rin being escorted by 2 of the figures. The lieutenant wasn't struggling. In fact, he appeared unharmed, merely ensnared in some kind of non-lethal restraint. The sophistication of the trap that had captured him was concerning. Rin was one of her best, trained to detect and avoid the most advanced Confederation snares. "Commander," Sesh's urgent whisper interrupted her thoughts. "I've been compromised. They've immobilized me with some kind of adhesive net. I can't." Her transmission ended. Lyra's heart rate accelerated. "Kiro, fall back to the ship. Prepare for emergency extraction." "Negative. Commander, I'm already contained. They came from above. Never saw them." 3 operatives captured without firing a shot. Lyra's mind raced. This was no ordinary training facility. The level of skill demonstrated by these diminutive commandos suggested something far more dangerous than she'd anticipated. She needed to observe their command structure, determine their capabilities, and most importantly, gather evidence of this treaty violation. Decision made, she continued her approach, moving with even greater caution. The central clearing appeared to be the heart of the operation. A larger figure, adult-sized, stood before a gathered group of the smaller ones, gesturing at what looked like tactical displays. Lyra activated her audio enhancers and strained to listen. "The excellent work with the capture and release exercise," the instructor was saying, his voice carrying clearly through the forest air. "Remember, the objective is never to harm, only to control the situation. These woods are your classroom, and everything in them is a teacher." "Capture and release?" Lyra frowned. That didn't align with Commando training protocols as she understood them. Cadets Blue Team, you'll take the east perimeter for the night watch. Green Team, continue processing your captives according to the protocol we discussed. Remember, this is a safe learning environment for everyone. The smaller figures, cadets, responded with disciplined acknowledgments, then dispersed to their assignments. Lyra noticed that they moved with the coordination of seasoned soldiers, but retained something in their manner that seemed oddly playful. Several exchanged what appeared to be hand signals that bore no tactical purpose she could discern. Gathering her courage, Lyra made a calculated decision. She needed to get closer, to see exactly what kind of operation this was. Using every ounce of her stealth training, she advanced toward the central clearing, staying within the tree line. The instructor continued addressing the remaining cadets. Tomorrow's exercise will focus on environmental awareness. The forest provides everything you need if you know how to look. Your assignment tonight is to record 3 examples of symbiotic relationships you observe in the local ecosystem. Symbiotic relationships? What kind of commando training included ecological studies? Lyra edged closer, her confusion mounting. The instructor turned suddenly, looking directly toward her position. His eyes, unmistakably human, crinkled at the corners. "And it seems we have another visitor who's interested in our little camp," he called out pleasantly. "Why don't you join us? Your friends are quite comfortable." Lyra froze, her cover blown. Before she could retreat, she felt a presence behind her. Turning slowly, she found herself surrounded by a semicircle of the small commandos. Their faces visible now, young, incredibly young, but with eyes that held remarkable focus and confidence. "Hello," said one, a female with copper-colored hair tied back in a practical braid. "You're really good at hiding, almost as good as Jaden." She gestured to a freckled youth who grinned with pride. Children. They were children. Lyra's mind struggled to process this revelation as she was politely but firmly escorted into the clearing. The instructor, a tall human male with weather-beaten skin and laugh lines around his eyes, nodded respectfully to her. "Welcome to Camp Orion," he said. "I'm Counselor Marcus. I assume you're here for your colleagues?" "They're fine. Just a little tangled up in our advanced knot-tying project." "Your colleagues?" Lyra managed, her voice strangled. Marcus gestured toward a nearby shelter, where Lyra could see Rin, Sesh, and Kiro seated on logs, surrounded by attentive children who appeared to be interviewing them. Rin caught her eye and gave a small shrug that somehow conveyed both embarrassment and bewilderment. "What is this place?" Lyra demanded, her hand instinctively moving toward her sidearm. Marcus noticed the motion but showed no alarm. "I wouldn't recommend that. The cadets have a competition going to see who can collect the most interesting equipment from visitors." He smiled apologetically. "They've gotten quite good at it." Lyra realized with a start that her sidearm was indeed missing from its holster, along with her backup knife and emergency transmitter. "To answer your question," Marcus continued, "this is a wilderness leadership camp. 2 weeks of team building, survival skills, and character development for gifted youngsters from the frontier colonies. We've been running these programs for years." "This is a disputed sector," Lyra pointed out, her voice tight. "Unauthorized installations are prohibited by treaty." "Camp Orion isn't an installation," Marcus replied easily. "It's a temporary educational program. We leave no trace when we depart, which will be in approximately 18 hours. As it happens, Week 2 is just wrapping up." One of the children approached, holding a small device that Lyra recognized with shock as Cairo's advanced scanner. "Counselor Marcus, is this a type of soil analyzer? It keeps beeping when I point it at the communication array." "That's not yours to examine," Lyra said sharply. The child looked up at her with genuine curiosity rather than defiance. "We'll give everything back before you leave. That's part of the code. What we borrow, we return improved." He held up the scanner, which Lyra noted with dismay had been modified with what appeared to be a hand-carved wooden casing that somehow improved its grip ergonomics. "Perhaps we should discuss the situation more thoroughly," Marcus suggested. "Your team is welcome to join us for dinner. The cadets are preparing their final outdoor cooking assessment. Quite tasty, if last year's group is any indication." Bewildered and outnumbered, Lyra found herself seated at the central fire pit an hour later, watching as children between what she estimated to be 10 and 14 standard years efficiently prepared a surprisingly sophisticated meal, using local ingredients and minimal equipment. Rin sat beside her, having been released from his restraints, an ingenious system of lightweight cords that had completely immobilized him without causing injury. "They captured me using a pressure-sensitive snare hidden beneath the forest detritus," he explained quietly. "When I triggered it, they descended from the canopy and had me bound before I could react. Not once did they threaten or harm me. In fact, they were polite." "They're children," Lyra hissed. "Human children in a militarized training camp." "I'm not so sure about the militarized part," Rin replied thoughtfully. "They've been asking me questions about Cygni culture and showing me their merit badges. I think they called them achievements in various skills." He held up a small embroidered patch, showing a stylized tree. "This one is for identifying 50 local plant species." Sesh joined them, her compound eyes gleaming with scientific interest. "Commander, these young humans display remarkable adaptability and problem-solving capabilities. They identified our surveillance countermeasures using nothing but reflected sunlight and manual observation. One of them explained to me that they were taught to look for the places where the forest doesn't behave like a forest." "That doesn't change the fact that they're being trained in military tactics," Lyra insisted, though her conviction was wavering. "Not military, Commander," Kiro corrected, accepting a bowl of fragrant stew from a solemn-faced child who waited patiently until the Brel murmured thanks. "Survival and teamwork. There's a difference. I've seen no weapons, no combat training, no indoctrination, just learning." Dinner was a surreal experience. The children sat interspersed with the Confederation operatives, asking countless questions about their species, homeworlds, and technology. Lyra found herself explaining basic Confederation astrogation principles to an attentive group who seemed to absorb information like sponges. As night fell, Marcus invited the Confederation team to observe the evening ceremony. The children gathered in a circle, each taking turns to share what they had learned that day. Some spoke of tracking techniques, others of identifying edible plants. One particularly enthusiastic youth described how she had improved the water filtration system using principles of natural sedimentation. "Tomorrow, we break camp," Marcus announced. "Everything we brought, we take away. Everything we found, we leave as we found it. The forest has been our home and our teacher. We honor it by preserving it for those who will come after us." The children responded in unison. "The stars guide us, the earth sustains us, our minds grow us, our hearts unite us." It was, Lyra had to admit, far from the militaristic indoctrination she had expected. Later, as the children retired to their shelters, Marcus invited Lyra to walk the perimeter of the camp. Night had fallen completely, and the forest was alive with bioluminescent flora that cast an ethereal blue glow over the paths. "I understand your concern, Commander," he said without preamble. "The Confederation sees a structured human activity in disputed space and assumes the worst. You're teaching children advanced infiltration and capture techniques," Lyra pointed out. "Forgive me if that raises some red flags." Marcus chuckled. "What you call infiltration, we call moving quietly to observe wildlife. What you call capture techniques are safety protocols for handling lost hikers or injured campmates. Context matters." Why here? Why the disputed zone? Because these children come from the frontier colonies. They live on the edge of known space, where help isn't always a subspace communication away. Self-reliance isn't optional for them. It's necessary. And yes, that includes knowing how to handle unexpected visitors. He gave her a pointed look. The transmissions we detected? Standard camp communications. The encryption is to prevent the children from calling home when they get homesick. Marcus smiled faintly. It's part of the experience. Learning to work through challenges without outside help. Lyra walked in silence for a moment, processing this information. If the Confederation had misinterpreted your presence here, if we had responded with force, that would have been a tragedy, Marcus acknowledged soberly. And a failure of understanding on both sides, which is why programs like Camp Orion are so important. These children will grow up knowing that strength isn't measured by firepower, but by adaptability, cooperation, and respect for all living things, including visitors from the Galactic Confederation. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent beep from Lyra's emergency communicator, the one the children had somehow missed. She activated it, hearing Captain Velo's terse voice. Commander, Tactical Unit 19 is inbound to your location. ETA 7 minutes. We lost contact with your team and are deploying with full countermeasures. Confirm receipt. Lyra's blood ran cold. A Confederation tactical unit descending on a camp full of children could end in disaster. Velo, abort mission. I repeat, abort mission. The situation is under control. There is no hostile force present. Too late to recall. Commander, dropships already in atmosphere. Secure yourself and your team. We'll handle the rest. The communication cut off. Lyra turned to Marcus, who had heard every word. To her surprise, he showed no panic. Camp Orion, Protocol Shooting Star, he called out, his voice carrying through the night. 7 minutes to execution. This is not a drill. The camp erupted into activity. Children emerged from their shelters, moving with practiced efficiency. No screams, no confusion, just focused purpose. Within seconds, equipment was being packed, structures dismantled, and all signs of their presence systematically erased. "What are you doing?" Lyra asked, astonished by the precision of the operation. "Wilderness protocol," Marcus explained calmly. "Leave no trace. We practice this daily, how to break camp efficiently and without damage to the environment. The children view it as a game. How quickly can we disappear?" He smiled at her shocked expression. "Did you think frontier children wouldn't know how to relocate at a moment's notice? It's a fundamental survival skill." Lyra watched in amazement as the camp vanished before her eyes. The shelters came down, their components tucked away in compact packs. The fire pit was extinguished, then covered with pre-cut sections of soil and vegetation that blended seamlessly with the surrounding ground. Even the obstacle courses were disassembled, the natural materials scattered back into the forest. The children worked in teams, checking each other's areas with thorough efficiency. Several approached the Confederation operatives, returning their equipment with solemn ceremony. "Thank you for letting me study this," said the boy who had modified Cairo's scanner, handing it back with care. "I learned a lot about subspace harmonics." A girl returned Sesha's adaptive camouflage suit, neatly folded. "Your thermal regulation system is really interesting. I think you could improve the efficiency by adjusting the circulation pattern here and here." She pointed to specific junctions with surprising technical accuracy. Within 6 minutes, all traces of Camp Orion had vanished. The clearing looked as natural as any other section of forest. The children stood in formation, packs on their backs, looking to Marcus for guidance. "Counselor, the path to Extraction Point Bravo is clear," reported one of the older cadets. "Scout team confirms no obstacles." Marcus nodded. "Well done, everyone. Proceed to the extraction point according to plan. Maintain forest discipline." The children filed silently into the trees, moving with the same quiet efficiency they had demonstrated throughout. Several waved goodbye to the Confederation team as they passed. "You're evacuating?" Lyra asked. "Relocating," Marcus corrected. "Our transport wasn't scheduled until tomorrow, but we always have contingency plans. The children consider it part of the adventure." He extended his hand, a human gesture of respect. "It was interesting meeting you, Commander. I hope this encounter provides some reassurance about human activities in the disputed zone." Before Lyra could respond, the distinctive whine of Confederation dropships pierced the night. Tactical Unit 19 had arrived. Captain Velo was not pleased to find his heavily armed squad facing only 4 Confederation operatives standing in an empty clearing. "Commander Howe," he growled, his helmet retracting to reveal a face flushed with battle readiness. "Explain." Lyra stood at attention. "The intelligence was incorrect, Captain. This was not a military installation." "Then what was it, and where is it now?" "It was a temporary educational camp for human children. They've departed." Velo's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Children? You expect me to believe that your entire team was neutralized by human offspring?" Kiro shuffled uncomfortably. "They were surprisingly effective, sir." "Sweep the area," Velo ordered his troops. "Find me evidence of what was here." The tactical unit deployed, using advanced sensors to search the clearing and surrounding forest. After 30 minutes of increasingly frustrated efforts, they had found precisely 3 items: a hand-carved wooden whistle, a small booklet titled Aegis 3 Flora and Fauna, a field guide, and a sign that had been driven into the ground at the clearing's edge, bearing the inscription, "Camp Orion, Week 2. Complete. Remember, the forest remembers your footsteps. Make them worth remembering." Velo stared at the meager evidence, his expression a mixture of disbelief and growing uncertainty. "You're telling me a group of human children evaded our surveillance, captured Confederation operatives, and then vanished without a trace in less than 7 minutes?" "Yes, sir," Lyra confirmed. "And they did it without specialized technology or weapons of any kind." The implications hung in the air, unspoken but clear. If human children could accomplish this as part of an educational exercise, what were adult human specialists capable of? 3 days later, Lyra sat in her quarters on Listening Post Vega 9, finalizing her report to Confederation High Command. She had spent hours trying to find the right words to convey what she had witnessed without triggering a diplomatic incident, or worse, a renewed conflict. On her desk sat the wooden whistle, left behind by one of the Camp Orion cadets. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, the wood carved with delicate symbols that Sesh had identified as stellar constellations. When blown, it produced 3 perfect notes that could carry for kilometers through the forest. Lyra picked up the whistle, turning it over in her hands. Such a simple object, yet it embodied everything that had unsettled her about the encounter. The blend of primitive methods with sophisticated understanding, the focus on harmony with the environment, the teaching of skills that could be used for either peaceful or military purposes depending on the intent. She set it down and returned to her report, making a final edit to the conclusion. While Camp Orion did not constitute a violation of the treaty in letter, its existence in disputed space raises important questions about the definition of military training versus survival education. The human approach to preparing their young for frontier life inevitably includes skills that have tactical applications. However, it is the conclusion of this officer that these skills were being taught for defensive and adaptive purposes rather than aggressive ones. Of particular note was the emphasis on non-violent problem-solving, environmental stewardship, and the complete absence of weapons training. The children demonstrated remarkable capabilities in areas Confederation tactical doctrine often overlooks: improvisation, resource efficiency, and cooperative problem-solving without technological dependence. It is my recommendation that Confederation military academies consider integrating similar principles into our own training regimens. The incident at Camp Orion revealed significant blind spots in our operational assumptions, particularly regarding what constitutes a threat. Most importantly, this encounter suggests that our understanding of human cultural values may be incomplete. The camp's core philosophy, as stated in their own words, appears to be, "They win by teaching, not killing." This perspective merits further cultural and diplomatic exploration. Lyra hesitated, then added one final paragraph. Intelligence reports indicate similar youth wilderness programs may be operating in other disputed sectors. Rather than approaching these as potential treaty violations, I recommend using them as opportunities for cultural exchange. Our children have much to learn from each other. She transmitted the report, knowing it would likely be met with skepticism at the highest levels. Nevertheless, she felt a strange sense of hope. The children of Camp Orion had captured more than just Confederation operatives. They had captured a glimpse of a possible future where the disputed zones might become places of learning rather than conflict. As she prepared for her next assignment, Lyra placed the wooden whistle in her field kit. In the disputed spaces between stars, it never hurt to have a way to signal your presence to those who might be watching from the forest's edge. Across the sector, on a different moon with different forests, Marcus gathered a new group of eager young faces around a campfire. "Welcome to Camp Orion, Week 3, he announced with a smile. "Today, we begin with a very special lesson about making friends in unexpected places." In the shadows beyond the firelight, other counselors were already setting up the next round of learning exercises. One unfurled a banner for the morning's first activity: Cosmic Diplomacy, how to welcome visitors from the stars. The stars above twinkled like knowing eyes, watching children learn the most powerful lesson of all, that understanding your neighbor is the greatest victory of all. Commander Lyra Howe would have approved. On listening post Vega 9, a new transmission was detected from the Aegis system. The AI flagged it for review, noting its unusual structure. When Lyra played the message, she heard only the 3 perfect notes of a wooden whistle, followed by children's laughter echoing among the stars. She smiled and classified the transmission as non-military communication. Some lessons, it seemed, were worth learning twice. In her private log, she made a single entry. Perhaps the disputed zones are not places of contention after all, but classrooms where different species can learn from each other. The humans may have discovered this long before we did. Their children certainly have. The whistle sat on her desk, a reminder that the universe's most important boundaries were not those drawn on star charts, but those crossed by extending a hand or returning a cherished object to a stranger from another world. The journey from fear to understanding was the greatest expedition of all, and like the cadets of Camp Orion, Lyra had taken her first steps along that path. Where it would lead, only the stars knew, but she was ready to follow it, one lesson at a time.